you, and thank you, Lord Grimstone, for joining us. Thanks everybody for being here. Actually, I was in Delhi and Mumbai last week, actually, so I literally just got off a plane on Saturday morning. So this is perfect timing. But what I really wanted to ask you, Lord Grimstone, was sort of clean growth or green growth. What's the best way of thinking about it? How do you think about it in the context of your role of Minister of Investment?
Well, look, this is a new industrial revolution. I like to reflect sometimes that the first industrial revolution, which started in the UK, 200 years ago, was entirely based on coal. This industrial revolution that we are now in, the green industrial revolution, is based on the removal of coal. And it's a very interesting example of how the world moves on, technology moves on, people's thinking moves on. So I see this as the most tremendous opportunity, but an opportunity not just for the world and for climate, but also, frankly, for investors. I've spent most of my life in investment, a lot of it on what you might call the UK-India frontier. And I do see this as a huge opportunity for both of us to work together and work together to our mutual advantage. Because to my mind, in today's climate, it's investing for mutual advantage, which is the name of the game.
Great, thank you. And how do you think COP26 plays into that? What was your feeling about COP26?
I think COP26, which I pay huge credit to Alok Sharma, the chairman, for bringing it to a reasonably successful conclusion. I thought it was fantastic because the whole focus of the world for those couple of weeks was on Glasgow, was on COP26, and was on climate change. So I think it gave a huge sort of sense of momentum. And of course, the challenge now is because only, what are we, only under a year on, the world has changed almost beyond recognition since then. But I'm absolutely certain that we have to keep the fire which COP26 lit alight and burning fiercely. And the good news is that despite all the issues that the world is facing at the moment, I see no signs of people wanting to diminish that fire or to put it out.
And do you think those the current challenges in gas prices are going to be an accelerator in the medium to long term, or a detractor, or how do you?
Well, the thing I've learnt about energy policy since I've been in government, that you always wish that you had taken the decisions 10 years ago, because to readjust energy mix is a complex job. And look, and let's be straightforward with ourselves. We knew where we were starting at COP26. We knew what the end point was. For the case of my country, net zero by 2050. But the path in between the two, let's say that path was a little bit indistinct, and no one quite knew what it meant in terms of getting from A to B. But clearly, and it was perhaps not spoken about very loudly, but it was certainly recognised, there had to be a transition, and that for example, natural gas would play a part in that transition. So I think what's happening now is going to lead to a slight kind of reappraisal of priorities, but it's giving a tremendous fillip to things like offshore wind. Imagine most of the UK's electricity is going to be produced by offshore wind by 2030. It's giving a tremendous fillip here to nuclear. We used to be one of the world's leading nuclear fission powers, and we want to move ourselves back into that position. And it's giving a tremendous fillip to hydrogen, and moving us to a hydrogen economy. So all of those things are going on, and will actually make sure that COP26 happens, and it happens to the timetable that we all want.
So it's sort of keeping our eye on the long-term goal as well as understanding the sort of short-term disruptions.
Absolutely.
So, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then in terms of India and what India can bring to the UK, how do you think about that? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, when I look at India, and gosh, I must have been to India nearly 100 times. When I think about India, what do I think about? I think about its huge technology and R&D skills. I think about the energy of its people, and I think about the capability and competence of its business leaders. And I've sat in many Indian boardrooms before I became a minister. And what always used to strike me during those board meetings were how similar the attitude of India and the UK was to doing business and to doing things together. So I see huge complementarity. Now you see this, because of the remarkable fact in historical terms that often in the last 10 years, India has been the largest investor in the United Kingdom. And what I think we're going to see now as a result of the great impetus towards change that we've been talking about is more of that Indian investment going into net zero, into green activities, more complementarity, a lot more work being done between our universities, between our technology institutes on the R&D side. And I'm absolutely encouraging my Indian counterparts to take advantage of that. And let's work out where we absolutely do complement each other, and let's work together. And of course, I know it's not the subject of this chat, but you should not underestimate the impact of the free trade agreement and the negotiations on the free trade agreement. And forget about the pure trade aspects, important though they are. The psychological impact of two major countries coming together to negotiate and agree something like that, in my experience from elsewhere, is a huge, almost psychological and a practical boost to working together. And I see that also as going to be one of the powerful catalysts to working together on green energy.
Right. And what are the things that can be done at, say, a government level or a finance level or a private company level to sort of make that happen? Because we know this needs to accelerate, to meet net zero, investment's going to need to increase, more technology deployment. So what are the things that can be done?
Certainly. I mean, when you have new technologies and new opportunities like this, I think that having a bit of kind of government to government backing is a good thing. It raises people's confidence that this is going to happen and that both countries are committed to it. So I think the governments have an enabling effect. But in the end of the day, do I think this is going to happen by governments doing it? I'm an advocate for the private sector on that. I think governance enable, but then it's for the private sector to work together to take advantage of the opportunities. And I dare say in this room now, there's a number of entrepreneurs in this room now who see how to take advantage of that. So I think the government should set the framework. I think the companies should take advantage of that. I think we should be encouraging our universities to work together closely on this. I think we should be exchanging PhD students. I think we should be having elaborate programs on that. And I think we should celebrate success, make it visible, and that will make more people, sort of follow. We have a tremendous base to do that. So I'm actually pretty confident that is going to happen.
And do you think the finance community get that?
I think so. I mean, on finance, of course. I mean, it's a very well-trodden route for Indian companies to raise finance in London. The green finance market is become an extraordinarily deep market. I would like to see, of course, we're not in the best of market conditions at the moment, but once we get through these kind of short-term factors, I would like to see Indian companies raising green finance in the UK. I would like to see the Indian Stock Exchange and the UK Stock Exchange working much more closely together. I really believe that we have to knock down these bureaucratic barriers which are stopping, for example, joint listings of companies in both our countries. Because I think it's things like that that will facilitate the raising of the finance that we're going to need for this. And of course, public money, public sector money, government money will play a part. But it's very clear to us, and I think it's very clear to my friends in India, that this is going to have to be largely financed by the private sector. The money that is going to be needed cannot come from the public sector. But I would go further and I would say it should not come from the public sector, because we will get better results if we set up the environment that private investment from both our countries floods into this.
Do you want to say a little bit about innovation? You mentioned R&D a couple of times in universities. What's the role of innovation in this transition?
Well, I think it has a huge role. I mean, let me just kind of pluck out one thing: batteries, and the changes that we're seeing in battery technology. And I'm very close to that. The developments that are going on in that are incredible, amazing, and those developments are being fueled by UK scientists and by Indian scientists. Take hydrogen. The introduction of hydrogen as a major heating source is going to require a lot of technical work to be done. Let's see our scientists working together on that. Let's see our scientists collaborating on heat pumps. Let's see Indian companies manufacturing heat pumps in the UK. And let's facilitate all of that to get it moving.
Yeah, and have you a particular thought on sort of renewable energy in terms of wind and solar? India actually auctioned more wind and solar last year than anybody else on the planet, including China.
Right.
And has huge ambitions domestically to scale wind and solar. How do you think that can help the UK?
Well, I think it can, but also vice versa. I mean, the UK at the moment has the second largest installed offshore wind in the world, next to China. We expect to be generating 50 gigawatts of electricity by 2030. So there is huge technical knowledge here about offshore wind. At the moment, most of our offshore wind is fixed. I see huge opportunities in floating. But to give you a sense of the opportunities, we all know how valuable the North Sea was to the UK because of its oil and gas. We now project that in economic terms, the North Sea will be more valuable to us going forward because of its wind than it ever was for oil and gas. And I think by sharing those experiences, by Indian companies participating in the supply chain here, they will be learning experience to our advantage as well, and then taking that experience back to the UK. And I'm already seeing some of the large Indian industrial groups looking closely at investing in this in the UK, and in particular in the supply chain. The supply chain for these new industries provides a huge opportunity for all of us.
Yeah, and transport, do you want to say a word on transport, clean transport?
Yep. I'm the Minister in charge of the automotive industry in the UK, so this is a subject which is very close to my heart. By 2035, we will have no vehicles producing emissions on the UK roads. By 2030, effectively, the sale of internal combustion cars would stop. And just imagine the transformation that is causing in the automotive industry. For many journeys, electric batteries are going to be the answer. But for a number of journeys, long-distance journeys, heavy goods vehicles, express long-distance buses, that's likely to be driven by hydrogen fuel cells. And again, huge opportunities to work together on this. Of course, the automotive industry in the UK benefits hugely from Indian investment. No, it's impossible to overestimate the impact that India has had on the automotive sector in the UK through of course, Tata's fine ownership of Jaguar Land Rover. And I'm looking to see all that transmuted into work on electric vehicles, whether it's batteries or hydrogen fuel cells going forward.
Fantastic. So you paint a good picture of sort of industrial transformation. My final question is, so what to do now? Where to start? So what's the most important thing that we should focus on?
Well, look, I'm practical. I didn't come into politics to talk about stuff. I came into politics to try to get things done. So I think we have to identify some particular areas, and we've talked about these this morning. And I think we've just got to sit down, meetings like this, and just get together and start these things. My door's always open to India investors. I mean, any India investor who's interested in, investing in this in the UK, get in touch with me, and I will find ways to make it work to our mutual advantage.
Fantastic. Well, I think our time is up, so please join me in welcoming Lord Grimstone. Thank you.